You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your coach, Jason.
Your coach, Danny.
Fans, we got a full show for you today. A little bit about the NCAA. Y'all may have heard of this thing called the NCAA tournament. A little bit about basketball, a little bit about Major League Baseball. But before we get started, Danny, fans, go ahead and like the show, subscribe to the show. You know how these algorithms do by now. We need the algorithms to algorithm. But first, Danny, right into NCAAs, and where we got the Final Fours for both men's side and the women's side. Florida against Auburn, Houston against Duke. And Danny, these are all number one seeds. And I think this is what we'll be seeing moving forward. I really do. I think with NIL, the highest bidders, which are going to be the number one seeded teams, more than likely, are going to face off in the Final Fours moving forward. This Final Four, Florida against Auburn, Houston against Duke. I think Auburn's going to take Florida down. This Houston-Duke matchup, I'm interested to see how this Houston defense holds up.
Yep.
Their defense is wicked. And I'm really curious to see how Duke and Cooper Flag deals with this defense. But if I would put some money down, and I'm not saying the fans that you need to put your money down. I'm just saying if I would have put my money down, I'm not a Duke fan by no means. But I have to say Duke Auburn would be in the finals. What say you, Danny, about this matchup, this Final Four?
4 number one seeds being chalk, and like the stat is out there, the last time this happened, they were in San Antonio for the Final Four back in, what was that, 2008? That Houston-Duke matchup, man, you talking about contrasting styles. I think the big thing there is, in order for Houston to win, they have to hit their shots. I think they're going to be a disruptor on the defensive end because that's their game. But in this last game, when they played to get into the Final Four, they made a lot of three-pointers. Sharp was on fire in that second half. They have to hit their shots because if they go cold, that's going to be the problem with Duke because Duke can score. And having the number one player out there in Cooper Flag, that also helps their case. So that game, I think, is the one I'm looking forward to the most. But I think the Florida-Auburn game is also going to be something else. I just look at Auburn, man, and the way they came into the tournament. They're kind of limping into the tournament for a number one seed, but they've picked it up. I'm curious, though, about Broom's elbow.
Yeah. Yep.
Because if that's going to be a factor, that's where I see Florida being able to beat Auburn. But the way Florida got lucky to get into the Final Four, Texas Tech blew that one for sure.
Oh, they blew it, man. Oh, they had it too. They had it, man.
Yeah, so that's where I see the way Auburn's playing right now. I think they should be able to, and I agree with what you have as far as Auburn Duke is the final. But I'm curious to see how Broom plays because if there's some reason he's not at his full and that impacts the team and their flow, Florida's going to take full advantage of it.
Yep.
So I'm just looking forward to the weekend, though. It should be 2 great games.
And then on the women's side, and I have to say this, man, I actually watched more of the games on the women's side than I did the men's side when it came down to, the Elite Eight. See who goes to the Final Four. Dawn Staley, man, she can coach. This is also going to be an intriguing Final Four where you have Texas against South Carolina, 2 number 1 seeds.
Yep.
And then you have UConn against UCLA, a 2 seed, that being UConn beating the 1 seed USC without Juju. I would
Mm-hmm.
have loved to have seen that matchup, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and to Juju, get well soon. I know how ACLs can be. This South Carolina Texas game, that they're both going to be good games. I'm giving the edge to South Carolina in that game.
Mm-hmm.
This UCLA UConn game may give the edge to UConn. What say you, Danny, about the women's side?
Jay, I was right there with you, man, watching these games. UCLA got lucky against LSU. There were some
Yep.
calls
Yep.
towards the end of that game. I'm like,
Yep.
I'm like, come on, man. That one where the ref was sitting there looking, or where the girl stepped straight up on the line from UCLA. So I didn't know. I was like, man, these refs are not for LSU because I really want to see LSU play UConn, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
in the Final
Mm-hmm.
Four. But obviously, that's not the case. But I think Betts in the middle with UCLA, if she can get going and stay out of foul trouble, they're going to be a hard out. But I think this may be the Paige Becker's. She has to get that title to cement her legacy with the UConn. So I'm actually pulling for UConn to get UCLA,
Mm-hmm.
just to see her advance to the final game. And then that Texas South Carolina game, man. South Carolina looks shaky. Duke has to be kicking themselves, man, because they came all the way back, took the lead, and fell apart at the end. Great game again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but that experience from South Carolina,
Yeah.
I think, will have them prevailing. So I'm agreeing with you again, man, here with South Carolina, UConn. Uh, but UCLA is going to be tough because, like I said, with Betts, as big as she is down low, if she can neutralize UConn and stay out of foul trouble, then UCLA, I think, can pull it off.
And now, Danny, on to the NBA. Just a brief mention here about the Milwaukee Bucks, really falling apart. Dame
Mhm.
Lillard is out. Don't know for how long. I think it may be for the rest of the season. Anytime you deal with blood clots, obviously that's a serious matter.
Yeah.
More so life versus basketball. But right now, the Milwaukee Bucks are at the 6th seed. We'll see, man. But I think with Bobby coming back pretty soon, hopefully that provides some form of a lift. But
Mhm.
it doesn't look good for Milwaukee Bucks when it comes to the playoffs here. But really, I really wanted to get to this whole controversy of what LeBron said about the 70s. In it, he gave Giannis a compliment, um, if you will, and saying that Giannis would score 250 points in the 70s in the game. And Giannis responds. He says, and I quote, "I'll say I don't know about that take. It's the wrong take. If I played in the 70s, it would be more of 275 points, not 250." But he was joking. He was joking.
Mhm.
He did say, and I quote, "Great compliment, but I don't like comparing eras. It's not fair. If I played in the 70s, how everybody practiced and how everybody played, we play the same way. That's all at the time. The game evolves. We got to 2020
Mhm.
and we know more. People shoot the ball from half court. It's totally different. You cannot compare this era and that era." Unquote. And Danny, such a spot on analysis and quote from Giannis. And it just kind of made me, really think, what in the world was LeBron thinking? Granted, yeah, this was on the Pat McAfee show, and they probably were just, talking back and forth. You know how I go, man,
Mhm.
shooting the breeze or what have you. And that was just kind of like a dig on the 70s, man. For LeBron to be such a basketball historian,
Mhm.
I just think that was just the inappropriate way of categorizing and really labeling the 1970s. What say you, Danny, about this going back and forth? More so this with what LeBron said.
I know he was free flowing in that interview.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
talking a lot, and usually don't get that out of LeBron. For him to do that, was actually kind of surprising within itself.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but I've been watching the Celtic City series on Max, uh, chronicling the Boston Celtics from origin to now. It's
Hmm.
kind of like The Last Dance for those of you who watched The Last Dance. And they're going, it was funny when he had that quote there talking. I was watching the show in the 70s, as they're transitioning from Bill Russell, into Havlicek and Dave Collins and those guys. The game was just totally different. I think he gets sick of people talking about, and this is just me talking, right?
Hmm.
Like with the All-Star game and all these other things, he's more or less the leader and the voice of the NBA. And I
Hmm.
think it was him kind of, I don't know, he just kind of lost it where it just annoys him.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
back in our day,
yeah.
back in our day. And for him to say that, that's why I think that kind of may have triggered that statement. But I think too, you got to think of weights and conditioning and 3-point shot. And
Yeah,
the game was totally different. It's evolved.
totally,
It's
totally different.
evolved. The game was just getting going, right? Because you had Kareem and those guys, with the dunk, and like I said, it was just a totally different ball game. Yeah, I know. Like I said, I think too there were some feelings that had bubbled up, and with him free flowing in that interview, he just said it.
And you bring up a very good point here about the All-Star game. And fans, you all know this, man. We mentioned this before. Back in 2017 at the All-Star game,
Mm-hmm.
the Roots and Black Thought actually performed along with some other artists. They performed in terms right before they introduced the All-Stars. It was, I think, one of the best air comparisons
Mm-hmm.
in art form that has been done, period. I highly suggest you all go watch, go YouTube that 2017 All-Star game with the Roots and Black Thought. But I'm going to quote some of the lines in what they said. Uh, and I quote, "We live in a culture that has always been obsessed with one age-old question: Who is the best? When was the best ever? Where was the best place? Who's the strongest, the fastest, the prettiest, the more stylistic? What is excellence? What is legendary? I mean, why do we even play? Define eminence. Who are the illustrious that elevated the sport to an art form? What is supremacy? What is greatness?" And then they go down the line, they go decade by decade, um, in where you had the 70s, the era of style, high socks, short shorts, big hair. And then you go ahead and talk about the Dave Thompsons, the Pistol Pete's, Black Jesus, Earl the Pearl Monroe. They go down that list. Then they talk about the 80s, the superstar era, Showtime, Magic, Bird, Isaiah, Barkley, Neek, you name it. And then they, again, continue to go down the decades. And then they end it. And this is the pointed thing, the pointed summary. Who really is the greatest? None of them are. In chasing ghosts of the past, we give birth to the present. True greatness is not comparison, it's evolution.
Mm-hmm.
Without each era, the game wouldn't be elevated to where it is today. Greatness is simplicity, style, superstar, power. Greatness is here and now. And in this back and forth, well, more so with what LeBron stated, he's chasing ghosts. He's not thinking about how can I be great right now. He's thinking about the age old question in his career: Are you better than Jordan?
Yep.
Who's the GOAT? And it's interesting because you don't hear that coming from Jordan. You don't
Mm-hmm.
hear that coming from anybody else. You hear it coming from LeBron.
Yep.
And so, LeBron, I ask you, what you doing? you evolve the game,
Yep.
make it better for the next generation and the generations thereafter. I don't know what would this era be. Just as they talked about the previous eras, simplicity, style, superstar, power, greatness is here and now. What is the term for the greatness being here and now? And I think that's what LeBron needs to focus in on because you only have a year or two. That's where I would leave it. It
Mm-hmm.
reminded me of this introduction, this pure and delicate, but yet powerful way of comparing eras in art form. And now, Danny, lastly, on to the likes of Major League Baseball. The new season has started, and oh no, the Brewers don't have a win yet, man. The Brewers are 0-4. Are you kidding me? And the first series against the Yankees, oh my gosh. You talking about being dominated. I the Brewers were dominated. There's no if and or buts about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether it was by these what they're calling the torpedo bats or regular bats, it don't matter, man. It just felt like home run after home run after home run, and it didn't stop there because their homestand first game of the season at home against the Royals, they got whooped 11-1. So I don't know what's going on with the Brewers. Man, it doesn't look good right now for the Brewers. I know it's very early,
Mm-hmm.
but Danny, I had a feeling about this season because we didn't see a whole lot of transactions. We didn't see a whole lot of action during the offseason at all. What's the one thing we said during the playoffs last year? We needed another bat.
Pat.
We needed some hitting.
Yep.
What didn't we get during the offseason? Hitting.
Hitting. Yep.
Now, granted, Yelich is back. No pun intended there. His injured back is, healed.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing. That's an extra bat, but we need some power. We need another bat. And I don't know. We got speed, but the speed does you no good if you can't get on base.
Yep.
And the way these Brewers are looking, this is going to be a long season. So I don't know. What say you, Dan, about these Brewers?
Jay, when I saw what was going on Saturday, which ended up being, was it 20-9?
Yeah, man.
And the Yankees hit 9 home runs, and this is that whole torpedo because Jazz Chisholm went off. Aaron Judge almost had 4 home runs in that game. And
And he's not using a torpedo bat.
and he is not using a torpedo bat. The pitching, I know they're banged up, but I don't know what they need to do. But they got to weather the storm, man.
They need some transactions.
Yes, they got to do something
They
quick
got to do something, man.
because, yeah, like you said, the opener yesterday, opening day, or at American Family Field, and the Royals dusted them. So they got game 2 tonight, and maybe they can get that first win of the season. So I'm hoping it's just a slow start, and then they can pick things up. But it is not looking good. And like I said, when we talked last week, I said them starting at New York was probably not the best for them either on the road in New York.
Mm-hmm.
In that game, though, they did score 9 runs in that Saturday game. But after that, man, they have a lot to get together. So
Yeah.
they're in dead last right now, in the Central, but it's still early for them. And I think the Cardinals have started off, I think 3-1 maybe. So you don't want them to get hot, but the other teams they can catch. So still early. Shake this one off. Try to at least grab a game against the Royals and then see how they can move forward. But in other news, man, the Dodgers and Padres starting off 6-0, 5-0 respectively. So they're off to a hot start.
Hot
But
start, man.
not good so far from the Brewers.
And Danny, lastly, just a fond farewell to big George Foreman. George Foreman passed away at the age of 76. I remember watching George Foreman that fight against Michael Moore, where he regained the title at he was like age 46 or something like that.
Yep.
That was a big deal, man. Just to hear of his passing and everything, man, it just brought back some memories. I know a lot of people remember the George Foreman grill.
Yep.
I think he got paid handsomely for that. But man, he's all-time great, and we say rest in peace to big George Foreman. Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.